banks should keep the legal house in order. There is no compulsion on Vijay Mallya as of now to return to India. That's the Attorney General Mukul Rohatgi in conversation with CNBC TV18. So let's discuss this legal recourse available for banks a little further. What are the options that are possible for the investigative agencies in case Mallya at all is keen on Ghar Wapsi at any possible time? We have two legal experts now joining us, A. Sundaram and Sanjay Hegde. Gentlemen, welcome to CNBC TV18. Mr. Sundaram, I'm going to come to you first. I'm sure you've read that interview by Vijay Mallya over the weekend where he's saying he would like to come back, but he doesn't see that he's going to get a free trial, so he's in no hurry. You've heard what the Attorney General has told CNBC TV18, that as of now there is no compulsion on Vijay Mallya to personally appear, that attorneys on his behalf can. What do you make of this?
Everyone seemed to wait till the horse had bolted, and after the horse has bolted, expects it to voluntarily come back. And I said this from day one when it first happened. I said, I think we got another Lalit Modi scenario. The fact of the matter is that the climate in issues involving huge debts due to banks or huge debts due to the government when not paid has often resulted in criminal proceedings and incarceration of the individuals. So I'm sure that Mallya would be quite concerned as to whether his return is going to be accompanied sooner or later by a possible arrest, in which case I do not see him ever feeling that it's the correct time to come back to India. The only correct time to come back to India for him is if he's in a position to make good the defaults and to work out some kind of settlement with the banks and arrive at an amount which he will pay and actually does pay it. Now, in the absence of that, going by what he said, I don't know what will be the right time for him to come back, according to him, in his own interest. And that is unfortunately the whole malaise which we have in this country.
Yeah, Mr. Sundaram, let's not forget he's already come out with a press release saying he wants to relocate to London. At this juncture, I'd like to introduce our in-house legal expert, Ashmit Kumar. Hi, Ashmit. I know you want to take the discussion forward. First of all, Vijay Mallya is pretty clear he doesn't want to ever move back to India. He wants to live in London.
Indeed, he's made that very clear. In fact, what he's also clarified is that he's not an absconder as far as this issue is concerned. And on that issue, Mr. Hegde, I'll come across to you. Not an absconder. Let's get the semantics out of the way. There is an ED summons that he's looking at. Hyderabad-based court, in fact, has issued an NBW, non-bailable warrant against him. Should he fail to, in fact, comply with these summons, with the warrants, could he then be termed as an absconder?
Well, there is nothing called an absconder in law in that sense. It's a legalism which we use rather freely. After if he fails to obey a warrant, or a warrant can't be executed, then finally he becomes a proclaimed offender under the Criminal Procedure Code, if proceedings are taken that way. But in normal parlance, he is a person who has not yet evaded or failed to answer a summons as yet, because once the summons is served and there is a date, the date is in the future. If he misses that date, then further steps would have to be taken by the ED. At that stage, it may be more right to call him a proclaimed offender if and when such a proclamation is in fact made. Absconder, you could abscond in many ways. You could be avoiding a summons, you could be evading one, or the summons having been served, or a warrant having been served, you've simply chosen to ignore it.
Mr. Sundaram, just taking from my colleague Ashmit's question, simply put, under what situation or under what condition can Vijay Mallya be brought back? Can any of the investigative agencies, be it the CBI or ED or even the government or MCA stepping in, can there be a situation where Vijay Mallya can be forced to come back, or do you see this going the Lalit Modi way?
Well, the fact of the matter is, if he is living in England under a permitted visa and he is permitted to reside there, then obviously the Indian authorities' jurisdiction would not extend to arresting him there, but they would necessarily need the cooperation of the British law enforcement agencies. And there's the rub, really, because the extradition process in England, if it is taken resort to, requires a detailed satisfaction of the English authorities that a prima facie case has been made out in one of the listed kinds of crimes which they would recognize for the purpose of extradition. Now, as to whether here, in the absence of finding that there is actual siphoning of money, actual diversion of funds, going on the basis that it's a limited liability company which then went into financial doldrums, and if that is all the cases, then I do not see how they would ever expect to, without his voluntarily coming back, expect to get him back with the assistance of the English authorities, which was why on day one action should have been taken much quicker, but for whatever reason it was not. Now, the second issue which arises over here is that once it becomes a question of possible money laundering, once it becomes a question of what the ED is now investigating, if that investigation, they are able to throw up enough prima facie evidence to show that there is actual money laundering and something like that has happened, then there would be a case to go to the British authorities and ask for extradition. Otherwise, as Mallya is saying very sanguinely there, I don't think this is the climate for me to come back. Maybe he expects the weather to be better before he comes back, and I'm referring to the weather so far as the entire focus is on him, the media attention is on him, the authorities are in him, Parliament's attention is on him, and basically the answer is he does not have the money to pay, and unless he pays that money, well, the weather won't be right for him at all, at any time. And therefore, I do not see him coming back.
Mr. Sundaram, while you say he doesn't have the money to pay, Mr. Sundaram, I'm sorry to interrupt you there. While you say he may not have the money to pay, the fact is the Attorney General, Mukul Rohatgi, has informed court that Vijay Mallya's assets overseas are far in excess of what he owes the banks. So my question to you is that, you know, if the Attorney General is saying that, I'm sure it's on the basis of something.
Well, if the Attorney General is saying that, then I think he is aware of something which perhaps we are not in the general know of. Because one of the biggest questions asked by the Supreme Court on day one was, how are these loans given with secured assets not even 10% of the loan value? And today the question does come up as to whether at all Kingfisher Airlines has the assets and Vijay Mallya personally has the assets to cover such a huge amount of money. And of course, if the assets are there and it covers the money, then where's the worry? He can come back tomorrow and settle the whole matter. I don't see why then he should feel the climate is not good.
Indeed, that's something that, of course, the bankers will have to come and clarify, getting disclosures. That will be crucial here. Just one final question here. Coming back to you, Mr. Hegde, on this issue here with respect to Saman Singh and him being personally present here in India. Just on the question, just if one could dare to draw a parallel, say, with the Sahara matter. Off the record, we have a lot of conversation that until issues such as personal liberty, until the personal liberty is at stake, until that moment is achieved, we cannot expect any further movement in terms of further interaction between the parties for settlement of the issue. So taking that forward, just your thoughts on that if one could compare that to the Sahara matter, say, for example, how crucial would it be for the bankers to have him back in India for the recovery proceedings to begin?
The bankers are not interested in Vijay Mallya. They are interested in their money coming back, money which they so improvidently lent to him. The question is, how much of Vijay Mallya's personal assets were mortgaged to the banks or are available to the banks to sell or within their control? Vijay Mallya may personally have many assets abroad, but were they at all the basis of the collateral for the loans? All those questions would have to be answered. As there is no comparison with Sahara to my mind, because Sahara is a different case altogether. Sahara was a case where he was in contempt of a Supreme Court judgment. He appears before the Supreme Court and is currently in detention in the contempt proceedings. That's entirely different. Here the question would be, as far as Mallya is concerned, is whether there was any criminality in any of these loans which were advanced. Was any criminal action taken by, say, defrauding the banks, by making false promises, or anything to which he put a signature? So if there is a criminal case, then there is a possibility that you may arrest Mallya. But arresting Mallya in a criminal case, sending him to jail, will not solve the problem of getting the money back.
And this is exactly what, like we've been reporting, the investigative agencies are investigating that on what basis were all of these loans provided to what is now the defunct Kingfisher Airlines. And of course, you have to carry on the conversation on the banks, on how fast they have been moving to recover all of the money. For example, for how long have we been hearing the Kingfisher Villa is going to be auctioned, Malia's properties in Bombay are going to be auctioned? Gentlemen, on that note, I'm going to thank all of you for joining us here on WhatsApp, and thanks, Ashmit, for joining us here to take us to the interview with the two legal eagles.